Welcome to Healing Generations, a podcast creating a dialogue uplifting the importance of healing, strengthening, and supporting our communities, and that addresses the disparities and inequities in communities of color. Healing Generations is brought to you by the Healing Generations Institute, a collaborative initiative of the National Compadres Network and the Brotherhood of Elders. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on our new releases.
I want to say welcome to all of you, and this is Tello with the National Compadres Network and the Healing Generations Institute podcast, supported by National Compadres Network, Brotherhood of Elders, and many other entities that really, contribute to this effort. And I want to begin, as I always do, by thanking the Creator and really giving thanks to the ancestors and all those people that have come before us that have really provided the guidance and direction, given us the inspiration, and given us really the medicine that we have to go forward. At the same time, we recognize that on this journey, even our ancestors struggled, and so we want to bring them in and bring in that, the generations of trauma that we want to heal, because we recognize that many of the things that are going on today are things that have never been talked about, never been resolved, never been discussed, and never been healed. So it's part of this podcast that we want to discuss those things, lift those things up, and then see how we can create a world, a community, a family, individuals that really honor the sacredness of who each other is, and how we can honor that so that we can have communities and families that really live in a sense of value and happiness and wholeness, and at the same time address the pain and trauma that's available. I want to invite you all just to take a moment just to recognize and respect where you're at, the land you're at. I'm on Tongva Gabrielino land, and recognize the original people there, but also at the same time recognize the community that you live in, because the community is really part of who we are and part of the work we do. So with that, thank you and welcome today. I'm very pleased and happy to have with us today a really, I consider her a very good friend of mine, almost like a sister, colleague, of course. We've worked together for many, many years, seen each other grow and struggle, but bring many beautiful things to the community. And I'm talking about Barbara Kappos. And Barbara, I've known for many years in different capacities. But Barbara, I met her at Bienvenidos Family Services a number of years ago. And, when I met Barbara, already I could tell by her heart and her spirit that, she really brought that love of people and the love of doing service to the work. And she's, one of the first people that I met that was really open to really modifying and changing and adapting and actually building what the community needs were. And Barbara was, at that time, as I said, Bienvenidos Family Services, and she's now at the East LA Women's Center. And that there's also a strong connection there, too, because many, many years ago, I worked there when it was called the East LA Rape Hotline. But here at the Women's Center, Barbara has guided, and with a really strong team of people there, mainly women, but there are some men there, too, to do some wonderful things in communities, really beautiful work that is needed, around the issues of women's issues and domestic violence and sexual assault. And so I want to just invite Barbara to just to greet the audience and just to say hello, and we'll begin this conversation.
Hello, Jerry. I'm a little emotional because, believe it or not, I think we've known each other for over 25 years. Mm-hmm. And it seems that, yes, so much has passed during this time, both on a personal level and a professional level, a community level. So I'm really honored to be here, and thank you for this invitation. I'm usually do not spend a lot of time talking about me. So, but it made me think a lot. I was thinking about this last night, how we met and the journey at that agency that I was at that time at Bienvenidos, that so much came together with you and the many men who joined that program at that time. So, I remember first meeting you, Jerry, and you came to my office in East Los Angeles. And the discussion prior to you coming was, we want to do parenting. However, we are supposed to be focused on men, and none of these parenting curriculums really fit what we're doing. And we need someone to come and teach us and help us move forward around this issue, not only to use the evidence-based curriculums for parenting, but we needed that special focus on men and how we could help, especially young men who were young fathers who had struggles in being a father and even connecting with their children. So I remember you coming into our office, and you kind of threw me off because what you said was, I'm here and, we can move forward. And I thought we were going to have this long discussion on contracts and how to, negotiate. And there you were, available to do this work. And from there on, that's kind of where I started my journey with you and the many men that came forward to put forward the project that we worked with young men. And that's where we met Bobby Verdugo, who came in as an intern. God bless his soul, miss him all the time. He came to the agency to intern and then joined the project. Ricky Lopez and Rigo, and then the many, many, many men that came after, that will always be in my heart and soul for the work that we did there.
And I think, I now know that, nothing is coincidental. That on that journey where I met you, it was needed, and it was time for us to really focus on not only healing men, but really on preparing them to raise that next generation of children. But, what really stood out for me, Barbara, is your compassion and your openness and your flexibility, but also your perseverance, because there were some things, and you know me, I was proposing things that were really not in a grant or not in a project or not. And I was really impressed by saying, okay, well, we'll figure out how to do that. And there was no funds and there was no scope of work for that, but you were so open. And, and what I want to just begin by asking is, so where did Barbara get all of that from? Who in your journey in life put that sense of service, that sense of love for community, that sense of compassion in you? How did you learn that? Where did that come from to bring you to a place where you could be so open and so compassionate and be a warrior too, because you had to fight for a lot of these things that, many people didn't think were even necessary?
So, for me, it came from my mother. My mother was definitely a warrior. She came to this country by herself, pregnant with me at 8 months old, from Greece. And, she had endured hardship there during World War II, and her family, they lost everything. So she decided to come here to this country, and she went to Wisconsin, of all places. And there was some family members there. Unfortunately, as she told me later on, she had to leave because one of her cousin's husbands tried to sexually assault her. And here she was, a young woman by herself with a little baby, and she decided to leave, not tell them anything, just leave on her own. And she went to San Francisco, where she knew she had some friends there, but really she was on her own. And, a woman by herself, barely spoke English, trying to make a life for herself here. We're a different kind of family. We don't have large family here, very small family. So I think that was one of her biggest challenges, but she somehow always endured. Our life was very interesting, to say the least. She was a hard worker. She worked as a waitress, and then she would open up businesses, and sometimes they would fail, those businesses, but somehow she would pick herself up and continue to find another type of business. So, Me, as I was the oldest of three children, and I was, I guess you could say, parentified. So I knew all her moves. I knew what our next venture would be. And, she was a protective mother. However, she never stood still, even in the worst situations that we endured. We grew up struggling. We struggled because we were alone and we didn't have that family to support us. And my father came later on in life. I met him later, but he was an alcoholic. He had suffered from depression. He was, not a violent man. He wasn't an abusive man, but he was a man who was struggling with his own mental health issues. So he was absolutely the opposite of my mother. And that marriage was not stable. So I would relate to my childhood more through my mother. Because of the depression and what he was struggling with, he was absent. And, maybe today, the help would be there for him. But, of course, in those days, men wouldn't get help.
Right.
Truthfully, I didn't even understand what he was going through until he was close to death. And he told me that he was depressed and the reasons why he was depressed. Maybe if I had known that early on in life, I could have helped him, but this is who he was. And so he was not the support that my mother needed, raising three kids,
Yeah.
remembering that, we would sit on the bus stop and she would take us to school or to childcare, and then she would go to work, and she just endured. So I think that's what connects me to the women I work with today, because I understand that isolation. I understand being alone. I understand the struggle, the challenges of life. And I also understand resiliency and strength. And I think that's who I got that from. Well, I know I got that from her and from my grandmother. My grandmother was a strong individual who, at the age of 16, they wanted to have her marry someone, an arranged marriage. And she lived on the island of Samos, which is in Greece. And what she decided to do at the age of 16, instead of marrying this individual, she got up, she left, and she went to Egypt. And she worked there
Wow.
as a seamstress at the age of 16 on her own again. And she endured, and she made her livelihood by being a seamstress and working in that country that she had no connection to in reality, but she learned the language and she lived there for quite a few years. And that's how she found her own independence and her will to continue in life. So, yes, I come
Wow.
from two very strong women who supported me throughout my life. And I'm always, I have honor for them and love for them.
Wow. That's beautiful. And you could see it in you. And now I understand it more, where it comes from, the whole sense of resiliency and the connection to the struggle, because being immigrants and single, women, but yet making a way, figuring out how to make a way. And I think that's kind of been the mantra of what you've done, over the years. How is it you got to college and then became a social worker? Because that seems, that seems like a long road in order to get there.
Well, one thing I can tell you is, although we didn't have family, we had a lot of people around us. My
Mm,
mother invited everyone to our home. She helped many, many people throughout her life, and our household was filled with different people from different backgrounds, different races, different ethnicities. It was a very diverse home environment, and she always helped everyone, I guess because of her own struggle, what she
mm,
had endured in her life during the war and during her life. She wanted to always give to others. So, one thing that I grew up was to be kind to others, to be compassionate, to help others. So, probably I would say at the age of 12, I knew I wanted to be a social worker.
wow.
Never ever wanted to be anything else but a social worker. So growing up in San Francisco during my time, there were many opportunities to learn and to grow. One of the things that I did when I was, young high schooler, I worked at the Head Starts that the Black Panthers had put together. And, a lot of people don't know that was
I didn't know
probably one of their
that.
first projects, working with Head Start, and I volunteered there. I also volunteered protesting in front of Safeway with Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta, and my mother would know on the weekends that's where Barbara is, at the Safeway protesting with everyone. So San Francisco was an amazing place to grow up in. Besides the music and the hippies and everybody else, it was also a time of action. And I was fortunate to be a part of that. So I think that was part of my upbringing and the activism within me. So, that was a big part of it. And one thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is, how did I end up at Bienvenidos in East Los Angeles? My
Yeah.
parents separated when I was 18, and my mom decided to move here to Los Angeles. And so I wasn't from LA, and I wasn't from East Los Angeles. So how did I end up in East Los Angeles? I've been in East Los Angeles now for 32 years.
Mm.
And I'll tell you the story because you said something earlier about it. Nothing's a coincidence, and that's true. My very good friend, Teresa, who lives in Sacramento, has a sister who has schizophrenia, and they had lost track of her during that period of time. And she gets a call from the Department of Children and Family Services that her sister had a baby and that she was living in a halfway house, and they wanted to know if she would take the baby. So Teresa called me, said, "Is it okay if I come down? I need to go to court and possibly then take guardianship of this baby that she had no clue even existed." So she comes down to LA. We go to court together. Her sister was with us. She consented to this, and they tell us at court, "Okay, fine, you will take guardianship of the baby, but you will have to go pick her up, and she's at a foster care agency in East Los Angeles, and the name of the agency is Bienvenidos." I'm like,
Wow.
okay. So we go there, we get the baby goes with my friend, they leave. The next day, I'm looking for work. I have my undergraduate now in social work, and I look and I see a job opening at Bienvenidos, the foster care agency in East Los Angeles. I'm like, okay, this is very strange. How is that possible, right? So I called and I met then with the CEO, Lori Castro, and I think the interview was 5 minutes. I don't even think it was that long. And I walked out of them like, okay, I got this job. I'm now a foster care social worker at the same office that we picked up the baby.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's what brought me to East Los Angeles. And I always tell her, now she's a grown woman, I tell her, you're the reason I'm there, because it just came together, and it was like a calling to be here. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's you're right. I mean, nothing is coincidental like that. And I think that our history and our life and even the struggles that our parents go through, kind of give us a basis for what we do. And we can follow that. And you followed that. And at there, Bienvenidos, I know, how long were you there? How long were you at Bienvenidos?
17 years.
17 years. You were there, a long time.
Yeah.
But I know in that process of the development there and the work that we did there, when I met you, you were wanting to develop a teen fatherhood program, but you were already doing many other things as well. There was other programs that were going on, and it impressed me that you all were interested in developing something for fathers, and especially for teen fathers, at a time in which doing things for men was not a very popular thing. And it was not funded very well. It wasn't, so there was something there that I just resonated with. And that's why when I sat down with you and I felt your spirit, and maybe I felt your grandma, I don't know, I felt something in you. My sense of just, yes, okay, let's do this. And without knowing what we were going to do, really, without knowing how we were going to do it, It just felt right to do it, What I've realized is that that's the way you guide your life too. It's not just about the proposal and the grants and everything, but there's a spirit, to Barbara that has guided you, all along. And I'm wondering, because I know beneath that, I mean, it's for me, it's helped me as well. What are the lessons? What are the major lessons that you've learned in life? That you mentioned kindness is one thing that your family, your mom says you must be kind, you must, serve others. But what are the lessons that you've brought with you that has really helped you persevere and really kind of guided your work, throughout all these years?
There are many lessons. However, my mother and my grandmother, of course, taught me to endure, to be resilient, but to be compassionate with others, to not judge others. I think that's very, it's critical in the work that we do. There's a saying I always say at my agency at East Los Angeles Women's Center. I have to sometimes remind the staff that this is not our life. Many times when you're in these positions of either being a social worker or a therapist or whatever, we have to remember that this individual we're working with, this is their life and their choices. We can only support them and guide them. And I think that's one of the lessons I learned from, my mother, that she sometimes didn't agree with some of my choices, but she was supportive of me. And that's really the most important. And I mean, being a parent, being a professional in this field, that we are there to support you, to guide you, to give you strength, to love you. I think that's, it's so important to be able to show that we care about you. And I know that many of these young men are wounded, and they carry so much pain, and you could see it. I mean, I can never forget the young men who would come together in that group. And sometimes they came from different gangs. They came from different neighborhoods. But when they came in that circle, they would put that all aside because they could tell that the men that were there for them, the environment of the organization, provided them with that support, that non-judgmental environment, and that love for them, and the support for them to be fathers for their children.
You mentioned, Bobby Verdugo, may rest in peace, and Ricky and Rigo as well. And I think about, today, Ozzy works with us, Ozzy Cruz works with us. And of course, the three dynamic people there were Ozzy and Richard and also Martin. Right. And these are guys that came from different places, different neighborhoods, but they became really like brothers. And Ozzy tells the story because now he's a national trainer with us. He's been with National Compadres Network for many, many years and working probably over 20 years with us. And he tells the story about that when he came there, he didn't want to come, that he was, referred by probation. But that, when he came in there, he felt the love. And it was the first time that, Bobby referred to him as Mijo. Come here, Mijo. Come on, have something to eat, And he says the first time that a man had called him son, So it was an environment that was created. And you were the catalyst, Barbara. Whether, we did the work, but you were the one that advocated, for there to be a place for men and there to be a place for young men, regardless of how you grew up and how your dad was or what you saw in the men. There was something in you that saw through the woundedness, that saw beyond, the woundedness. And I'm wondering, because now I mean, a lot of the work you do is around sexual assault, is around domestic violence, and so you see that every day. You see the hurt and the woundedness that many men create and cause. How is it that you've been able to reconcile and balance that and still advocate for the importance of men being involved and men needing services?
It's complicated in this field because the majority of individuals we serve are women and children. This agency has evolved throughout the years. I've been there for 14 years now, believe it or not.
Wow.
And basically, when I came to the agency, there wasn't any groups or really interaction with men that much, because that's the way the field is and continues to be in some ways. And I brought what I had learned from Bienvenidos, from you, from, everything that we had done there for 17 years. Now I'm bringing it into this agency, right? And one of the things that, of course, is very difficult is when you're working with a survivor who's had multiple traumas, who has endured not only sexual violence, but domestic violence through her family, through her partner. It's complex trauma is difficult to not only hear, but to help them find a road of resiliency and healing, right? And of course, for some individuals, it's difficult to work with men because of some of the pain that has been, endured. But my philosophy is that it is important that for those families who want to stay together, because we have a lot of families who want to stay together,
Yeah.
even though there is harm and there's pain in this family, they want to stay together. And you can't really work with just one individual in that home. You have to work with the entire family. And if this, and when I say a man, when I say, I'm using genders here, but when he wants to come forward and get support and be a father to his children, regardless if he's with his partner or not, I think we should have that opportunity for him, because children want to also know their father. They want to have a relationship with them. And if he wants to come forward and get support, then that's essential that we do that for him if we can. And that's why we work with the National Compadres Network at the East Los Angeles Women's Center and provide those opportunities for those men who want to come forward. It doesn't work with everyone. I mean, there are some individuals that have mental health issues and they have serious problems that these groups would not help them. They need a much higher level of care, and that would not be the appropriate setting for them. But for those who do want to come forward and get support and become a better father to their children and honor their relationships, I think that we need to make that happen. And we do. We work together with Ozzy, with Armando and Luis to be able to provide that opportunity for them to grow, to heal, to be a part of their children's lives and the part of their family's life.
I just want to acknowledge you and all the women there at the East LA Women's Center, because I know you all do tremendous work, that it's not easy work, that you work, sometimes into the night, weekends, get calls with women that are in distress, that need someplace to stay, that don't have anything to eat, that are just struggling and hurting, and your staff responds. So I want to just publicly just acknowledge all the staff at the East LA Women's Center that, come forward, step forward, sometimes sacrifice, their time with their own families because they love the community and because they want healing, not only for women, but for the family in general. And I think you extending that to the men that are willing and that are able, because we also know, I've been in this field for many years, there are men that are so wounded it's not healthy for them to be around their children, around their families. But those that are, to have a place for them to go and have a place for them to to be, I think is also very important. And we're not going to heal the world. We're not going to heal families. We're not going to heal that next generation of boys unless we begin to work with the men that are fathering them as well. And I think that that works both ways with the mothers as well, because there's a lot of single moms that are raising boys too. If they're not healed, then they'll pass that woundedness. But, I just want to, just take a moment to list up, all the staff and the women especially the women at the East LA Women's Center. And then, of course, Armando, Ozzy, and Luis work there. Then that's a generational, a group there that really work to help balance that work out too.
And, what's interesting is, this past 2 years have been quite a challenge for our families and this community. And we still are just transitioning out of this pandemic. However, families are impacted by poverty, housing instability, and, just struggling. And our calls to the center, as you said, it's 24/7, have increased. Our ability to house so many people that call us is impossible. But, we do our best to be able to kind of manage this chaotic system that creates so many, not only challenges, but barriers. Barriers. We were able this year to get around 75 Section 8 vouchers for families. And now we have the task of finding the housing for these individuals. The other day, one of our moms that's with us, she's been with us for quite a long time. She sought asylum, and we were able to get that for her. She had many challenges, legal challenges, but now she's stable, moving forward, and she has housing. So we found an apartment, and they're asking for $7,000 for security and first month's rent. How is someone who's living in poverty able to pay something like that? These are the kinds of challenges these families have. You think that, I've received now support by getting Section 8, but now I'm faced with this challenge. And many times they're not able to do it because they don't have the funds. We've been fortunate to be able to try to find not only government funds, but funds from donors that allow us that flexibility to be able to help individuals in their time of need. And that's important. And I guess that's the social worker in me, that we need to look at all of those barriers and break them down so that the individuals that come to us have a real chance to survive. And when I hear of these, larger organizations, they're very bureaucratic in the sense of helping individuals meet their needs. That drives me crazy. And I can say that now because I'm old enough and I've been in this field for long enough to say that's not okay. This person can't wait 3 months in order to get the support they need. They need it today in order to save their children, right? We always say Friday afternoon, someone always comes in for housing. And the other day, a mom came in with a 7-month-old baby who's been sleeping on the streets. And how are you going to turn your back Friday afternoon on this person and have her go in the weekend to continue to sleep on the streets with a 7-month-old? No. So we tap into those donor funds and we got her a hotel where she can stay for the next couple of weeks until we figure out what's the next step. That's what we need to do. And that's what we do in our agency and within our community.
Yeah, and you're such a blessing, to so many.
The staff, Jerry, is phenomenal. They have such passion, compassion for the individuals that come through our doors. Either it's on the phone or it's on the chat line or it's in person. Like you said earlier, they're there for them 100%.
Yeah. And, you never know who's listening. So, if there's any donors out there, any foundations, any funders out there that need some place to put some money, I really want to encourage you because we're talking about people's lives. We're talking about children, a big issue is homelessness now. And homelessness is one thing, but when you have homelessness among women that have children and are in danger, then the need is a little bit greater. And so if there's anyone out there that knows of support, I just encourage you to look to the East LA Women's Center, to provide some support that way because it'll be used in a good way. I want to transition here as we close today, just asking you as an elder, and somebody that has been doing this for a long time, walking this road. And I feel blessed to have known you for so long and for us to work together. But you carry a lot of wisdom. You carry a lot of teachings. If not, you would not be where you're at today, and you wouldn't be helping so many people. And so I'd like just to ask, if there's any advice, any counsel that you'd like to give, because there's other people, and can you imagine the 25-year-old Barbara or the younger you, the younger women that are out there that really want to do something for their community, that really want to live a good life and give back. What advice would you give them? What kind of counsel would you share with them in order to be able to fulfill that purpose and live a good life?
So I don't know if you know this, Jerry, but I teach a class at Cal State Long Beach on Saturday mornings at 8 o'clock a.m. And it's
Mm,
to students who are in the master's program of social work. And I have found that it's a way of giving back. Students always have to hear all my stories, but I'm hoping that I am able to provide them with some wisdom and guidance as they enter into this challenging field, but most rewarding. I am really blessed to have been able to be a part of this field, be a part of this community that I do love for 32 years. And I hope that all of the social workers that come through these programs are able to have that type of experience. I
mm,
am brought up, I'm lifted, I should say, by the survivors that I meet every day. When I hear their
mm,
stories, but I hear how they have endured and the beautiful things they're doing with their children and how they've survived, just gives me strength to continue this
mm,
work. So, one of the things that you should have, and I would hope you would have in your life, is faith,
mm,
regardless of who your God is, that you have that faith within you to pray, to endure, to believe in. We have to believe in something in order to survive. There's a doctor in Boyle Heights, Dr. Esparza. She's a holistic doctor, and one of the things that she says is that find something that you do every day for yourself that's ritualistic, whatever it is.
mm,
It's eating by yourself, it's gardening, whatever it is, but that you do it every single day and that it becomes a part of you. And, in this field that is complex and challenging and sometimes you can feel vicarious trauma from it. You experience that. It's important that we take care of ourselves, and sometimes
mhm,
simply just doing one act a day that belongs to us, regardless of what it is, can really support your well-being. And for me, it's just watering the plants, and I do that daily if it's not raining. And that gives me some type of, inner spirit strength. So I think that that's really important. It's very also important to stay connected. Regardless if the family is there, if you don't have a family, stay connected to friends, to a support network. Many of our survivors that come to us do not have the families. Their families may be in another country. They may also have been asked to not be a part of that family any longer because of the
mhm,
relationships they chose. And many of them are isolated and alienated. And so they need the type of support in order to survive the challenges that they meet every day. So it's important that we stay connected, that we don't isolate
mm,
ourselves, that we find a
mhm,
purpose. I always tell my kids and everyone else around me that's young, find a purpose, be intentional about your life. When you have
mm,
compassion and you love the work you do, you will always thrive and you always
yeah,
find that road ahead of you. So I guess that's really, the importance is to be intentional, to know what you want to do in life, to have a purpose, to love what you do, regardless of what it is. It doesn't matter.
mm,
And to love yourself. It's important that we love
mhm.
ourselves because so many people are shamed, discriminated against, and it's important that we're around people that support us and that we learn to love ourselves.
Mm. Well, thank you, Barbara, and I want to thank you just for living those teachings, and for opening up space and creating, efforts and projects to allow others to experience that, because I think your many years of guiding this work, and it's not easy because you've had to fight and had to advocate and had to go after funds and also really push against the grain many times to include all that you include in the work, that you are guiding there, at the East LA Women's Center. And you are a blessing. You're truly a blessing to our community.
Oh,
You're a part of our family, and we love you very, very
oh,
much. And just want to say thank you to you for all the many years work that you've done and the many people that you've blessed. And even in terms of the work for men, because, in you advocating for that program, you gave Bobby Verdugo a purpose. Really were able to lift up Rigo and Ricky, but you gave a place for many, many young men who are wonderful fathers and even grandfathers, and some are doing amazing work. So I just want to thank you for that, and thank, all of those of you that are out there that are doing this kind of work of healing, of embracing those that are struggling and trying to find their path, of giving them safety, of giving them shelter, of giving them love, but doing it with a sense of integrity. Look up East LA Women's Center, and if you can, volunteer or, support in whatever way you can. And for those of you that need support, there may be listeners that need support. There's a hotline that you can also reach, and we will attach in our information ways to contact the East LA Women's Center. We thank you so much for listening today. And, with this, we offer prayers and blessings for all those that are in need of healing and support and guidance that way. And, as Barbara says, take care of yourself, love yourself, do something good for yourself so that, you can then take that and spread it off to others. Thank you very, very much, and have a wonderful and blessed day.
For more information about Healing Generations and the Healing Generations Institute, visit nationalcompadresnetwork.org and be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our new releases.